Okay, we can start.
Okay, thanks a lot for the nice introductions. And first of all, of course, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to giving that presentation today and to share my thoughts on IP intelligence and the future of our profession of patent information. Today, so my name is Thorsten Zank. I'm an employee of BASF, which is one of the biggest chemical companies. And but today I'm representing an industry association, a European advocacy group on patent information, which is called the Patent Documentation Group. But I'm very happy to talk about this topic because it's equally important to me, both as a leader in the IP department of BASF, and both as a leader of the Patent Documentation Group supporting this transition from patent information to IP intelligence that we are faced with. So what I want to talk today. First of all, I would like to give the topic I'm talking about a frame. I would put it into the context of the changes that the patent information professional are faced with throughout the last years. Second, I would like to define what we are talking about when we are talking about IP intelligence. And give one example how IP intelligence can also generate unexpected insights to our internal clients. Second, I want to talk about what kind of impact this transition has on the people, on the patent information professionals, and how the organization of our departments of information professional can cope with this transition. And last but not least, I would like to briefly introduce the Patent Documentation Group to you and how this industry association is supporting the industry or its member companies in this transition. So let's start. It is remarkable that a profession which is actually known for his constancy are suddenly exposed to so many changes. So I'm in the business of patent information since 12 years. And since then, a lot of changes underwent in this business. First of all, we have the quantity of available information. This is dramatically increasing. We have a constant increase of, for example, patent filing in Western countries. When we are looking into Asia, we have even an exponential growth of patent filings in the offices. I'm not talking about non-patent literature, which is also dramatically increasing, or the entire world of the internet. Second is the availability of information. In former time, one of the unique selling propositions of the patent information professionals were having access to professional information sources. But more and more, this information is freely available. And actually, there are a lot of companies popping up, a lot of startup companies who are taking this freely available information and putting an analytics platform on top of that. Third, the complexity of what we are analyzing as information professional. Let me take an example, for example, in the field of agriculture, where in former times inventions were made of a new active ingredient to protect the plants against a pathogen, for example, and then its synthesis or its application to the plant. Nowadays, the companies are providing complex solutions which involve both classical crop protection, but also plant biotechnology and digitalization. So the information professional, they have to search and analyze beyond their core expertises and dig into new areas. Second, resources. In this context, we see that the patent information department are not increasing in staff. They're either keeping constant or decreasing. So how can then they cope with this gap of increasing availability and quantity of information and more or less decreasing employee in the departments? Digitalization is there, the buzzword which enters now on our profession. it is very clear that machine learning, text mining, ontologies will be partially supporting or replacing the activities that the information professionals are doing, talking here about the classical activities. Then the service portfolio changed. Whereas in former times, we were mainly serving the patent attorneys to do legal opinions. We were doing the freedom to operate searches. We were doing the opposition searches or the novelty search prior to filing of new inventions. Nowadays, we are also doing landscape analysis, white spot analysis, and competitor monitoring activities. In this context also, our customers change. So in former times, the majority of our customers were the patent attorneys. This one still remains a very important internal clients for us. But we also have clients in the research and operational divisions. And in this context also, it is expected from us a new way of interactions. Whereas in former times, we were more transactional and reactive. We should act now more systematic and more proactive. And also what is expected from us, that what we should deliver to our clients is changing. Whereas in former times, we delivered a pile of documents or a list of relevant documents, it is now expected that we provide the information that we are changes in the easy to digest format, that our clients can take immediate actions from our findings. So, but what remains constant throughout the years is that patents remains the most important source for information professionals. So then let's have a deeper look into what are patents about. I do not want to make a big training on patents, but in the first instance, patents gives its owner a legal right to exclude others from making, using, or selling its own invention. And to get this, they have to disclose their invention. So they have to make their invention available to the public. And this one is the basis and the fundament of our profession, which using that publicly information profession to generate insights. This one can be done by using the metadata, the so-called metadata, which are the fundament of the IP analytics. So using the owners, the years, the classifications to generate insights on new trends and new developments. But also, patents should not be seen as a legal document. It's also a very, very important source of scientific and technical know-how. 80% of the published know-how is published in patents. This one should not be forgiven. And therefore, this one is also seen as a fundament to generate insights. So what are we talking about when we're talking about IP intelligence? IP intelligence is about generating insights from patents with the knowledge about patents. This one is very, very important because always the people are often misunderstanding when we're talking about patent knowledge, for example, or on patent consultancy. They're often thinking that we are consulting on patents. But when we are talking about the consultancy is that we are consulting based on the knowledge that we are generating from patents. So, but of course, we only can generate knowledge from patents when we have knowledge about patents. Second, IP intelligence, I would say it's awake from his slumber. It is finally seen as really also as an important service for strategic decisions by our companies. And IP intelligence, it's nothing very new. It's a set of analytical services and analytical methods that we are executing and that serve as a fundament for business decisions. This one is a pretty complex slide, but I want to briefly go through it. So IP intelligence, it's not only about patents, it's about integrating information from different sources. Certainly patents is an important source, but we also have the scientific literature. We have news, we have market information, we have statistical information, etc., etc. And what we are doing when we're talking about IP intelligence, we are analyzing that information from external sources and bring this in the context of our internal activities. This is one of the major unique selling proposition of the information professional in our companies that can bridge between the external world and the internal world. We have serving several use cases. We are not serving, as I mentioned, the IP-related use cases, for example, FTO. We are supporting the strategic filings in our company, so the IP asset management. We have the use case of the R&D strategy. We supporting the opportunity finding by identifying new trends. And throughout the entire innovation chain in our company, we are supporting the competitor monitoring. And therefore, as I mentioned before, we are serving different target groups like the IP managers, the scientists, the scouts, and the executive. And how do we deliver our services? I mentioned before, it's beyond delivering documents. It's really presenting our results, generating reports, and also the newest development in our company is providing interactive solutions to our internal clients as dashboards. And let me please elaborate a bit more on this one. IP intelligence is beyond the delivery of documents. What you can see here is the workflow for the classical IP intelligence services. Fundament and basis of everything what we are doing are search results. We are searching in patent databases, for example, for documents which are relevant for a certain context. What we are doing then out of the search result, we are looking into that, and really we are separating the false drop from the real relevant documents. So we are categorizing the documents in the right ones and the wrong ones. And sometimes even the relevant documents, we are categorizing into different subcategories because they are covering maybe different aspects of that technology. The next step, what we are doing, we're taking the relevant information and we are extracting the information out of these documents. We are consolidating them and then we are visualizing them. The next step, we are interpreting these analyses and we derive conclusions. And in the end, based on our insight, we can generate recommendations. There was a recent post on LinkedIn which nicely describes this one within visual also. It was a post from Andreas von der Heid from Chewy, which talks about the difference between raw data and the story the data can tell. And he compares a crude search result with a pile of briquettes from Lego. You know, all Lego, all your kids are playing with it, and we also loved playing it when we were young. And what the information professional is doing is based on this pile of briquettes, it sorts it based on the color, for example. It sorts the different briquettes, the different bricks, and then maybe it's arranging it differently. It's enriching it with additional information, or for example, this one is mentioned arrange. And then the information professional are presenting them visual. These ones are then the visualized information. But in the end, what we have to do when we are talking about IP intelligence, we have to explain our findings with a story. How can we do this one? As I mentioned, the information departments are not increasing in staff. How you can cope with this? To focus more on the value add, on interpreting the information, we have to look how we can get support, and therefore we can analyze this workflow where we have a huge degree of automatization and where do we need a lot of contextual input. So where do we need context? And there you clearly see that the classical activity of searching and categorizing documents have a higher degree of automatization than the interpretation and the conclusion and the recommendation. And therefore, these ones are the two different aspects. And what we are also doing here, that the classical activities of searching and analyzing can be supported by the method of artificial intelligence, machine learning, ontologies, text mining. And where context is required, and there human intelligence remains to be relevant. So we free up resources on the one side of our workflow to have more time available for the value add. Now coming to an example how IP intelligence can generate unexpected insights. This is an analysis that we did 10 years ago, and this one we did within BASF for the strategy development of white biotechnology. And the strategy department asked us, they wanted to get insight about the major competitors of BASF in the field of industrial biotechnologies. They wanted to know how BASF is positioned in that entire technology field. And they wanted to know if there are any new company coming up and whether there are any M&A targets or collaboration partners in that technology field. So what we did then here, it's a combination of machine learning and IP analytics to come to this IP intelligence solution. So we used machine learning to identify out of a search result of 600,000 documents, 80,000 documents which were relevant for the field of industrial biotechnologies. With these 80,000 documents, we then applied the LexisNexis patent site patent asset index technology. So the patent asset index is a method which allows us not only to quantify or to evaluate patent portfolios of companies based on its quantity, but also on its quality or on its relevance for the technology fields. Whereas the quality or the technology relevance is mainly determined by the citation frequencies of patents in the patent offices. So what you can see in this picture is on the x-axis, the patent portfolio size of the companies in the field of industrial biotechnologies. On the y-axis, you see the average competitive impacts or the qualitative aspects of that patent portfolio. And the bubble size reflects the patent asset index, which is actually the product out of the portfolio size and the average competitive impact. So what you see here are the top dogs in the technology on the right-hand side, Novozymes and DuPont. Then you're seeing in the middle the chasers, DSM, Ajinomoto, and you see BASF is in the second row of the chasers. And on the upper left corner, you have small companies with small portfolios, but a huge competitive impact, which might be potential acquisition targets. What we also could identify that the Bank of America is a player in the field of industrial biotechnology, which was somewhat surprising to us. But we could explain it with the fact that at that time, it was just after the financial crisis in 2009, that a lot of startup companies gave the rights for their patents to assign it to Bank of America as a guarantee for loans. So this one could be explained, but this one was also a proof for our management that by these analytical methods, we could also potentially identify new players, which were also real new players, which were not on the radar of the scientists, of our employees, of the experts. So, and this one would be a complementary tool in addition to the expertise of our employees. Coming now to the people. What does IP intelligence mean for the people and the organization? First of all, what is clearly true is that IP intelligence requires a broadening of the classical competences of the patent information professionals. Beyond the classical expertise on patent information, on the databases, the sources we are searching in, the scientific background that we need, knowledge about intellectual property and the domain expertise in our companies, suddenly the people, they have to learn how to present their findings. They have to do analysis and visualization. They have to learn to tell stories and to consult our internal clients. And on top of it, they have to deal with method of artificial intelligence. They have to deal with more with IT, with data science, with ontologies, with machine learning, with text mining. And this one has the risk that it will overburden the individuals. So how we can nevertheless cope with it, because there is not a solution, not to say we will not do it. So one solution would be that we have to look into maybe the organizational setup of our information departments. And what I did here, for example, I put again all the expertise here on the left-hand side and see how can we as an organization cope with this. Certainly, we will have the IP analyst in the core of our profession, covering most of the competencies that are needed. But maybe we will also have more people who will work in the interface to digitalization, who have more expertise in data science and machine learning and ontologies. And we have another set of people dealing more in the consultancy roles, who have more expertise in the presentation and the storytelling and in the consulting. So that we have different roles in our department that may cope with the challenges that we are faced with by developing IP intelligence solutions. Coming now to the third part of my presentation, what role plays the patent documentation group in the context of IP intelligence? So I mentioned I'm representing today this advocacy group for patent information. It's a European industry association consisting of 44 companies, all having R&D activities and having patent information departments. There are from more than 10 different industries, and we all share in this context one vision that developed throughout the last decade also. And here you see all the different visions that we generate throughout the years. Our vision 2016 was that comprehensive patent information is available to all interested parties. In 2020, the vision was that comprehensive patent information is available and usable to support PDG members reaching their business goals. So it's already about the use of patent information, and we also had the business context. And our new vision 2024 is making the right decisions in our companies, based, of course, on patent information, which is what we can influence. What is the patent documentation group doing? So the companies, we are actively exchanging knowledge, experiences, and best practices with each other. We are debating, discussing, and encouraging improvements and new development with all interested parties. And you may know about the working group Impact. Impact is a working group who is talking also to the patent offices about the availability of patent information to the public and the quality of patent information. And what we do in the PDG is also we jointly develop new best practices and test new tools and technologies which are out there. Within the context of the change from patent information to IP intelligence, we also have some new activities in this industry association. We are talking a lot about digital transformation. So there also we share best practices. We create inventories, who is using which technologies. We discuss new developments and identify and test new tools. And also the other aspect, the consultancy, the customer and consultancy aspects, is very important to the PDG member companies, where we share experiences, seek for inspiration, collect information, and develop tools and processes. And with this, I would like to finish my presentation with some take-home messages for you, which is IP intelligence is about generating insights from IP-related information. IP intelligence will become more and more relevant for business and decisions, and the company who understood this will have a competitive advantage. IP intelligence relies on digitalization and analytics to become, on the one hand, more efficient, and on the other hand, more effective in what we deliver. IP intelligence certainly needs a skill in enlargement of the information professionals, but this one may be partially also coped by a new organizational setup of our departments. And the patent documentation group is, with its new strategy and its new vision, ready to support this transition. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention.